And welcome back to the program. I'm joined now by Rex Nelson, senior editor of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Always good to see you, my friend.
Good to be here, always. Thank you.
Football season over. We get more Rex Nelson now on the program.
Exactly.
So
I'm off the road.
So, all right. Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders' first 2 weeks in office, I think whereas Governor Asa Hutchinson was going to rule by task force, she is going to rule by executive order. What do you make of her first 2 weeks in office?
Yeah, I went back and I contrasted the first day in office for the two of them in an article that will be running in a week or two. And Asa Hutchinson, you'll remember, spent much of his first day calling CEOs of companies around the country saying, come do business in Arkansas. He wanted to set that tone early, that I'm all about jobs for Arkansas and I'm about getting computer science in the schools and moving the state forward that way. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, meanwhile, like you said, starts issuing executive proclamations. Now, I don't think that surprised any of us. In the big scheme of things, I can tell you as a guy who worked in the governor's office for about 10 years, most executive proclamations are pretty meaningless, frankly.
Right.
But they sent a message to her red meat crowd around the country that largely funded her campaign. Let's remember, her campaign was funded by Trump supporters from around the country. That's how she got the money early, to scare Tim Griffin out of the race, to scare Leslie Rutledge out of the race. So she started the day, or started the administration, throwing them red meat.
Yeah. What do you make of the fact that we are, we still haven't seen details of some of the legislation that she wants to push? She's laid out there some of the overarching themes that she wants. She certainly had the transition period to put some pieces together, but I'm not sure any governor starts on day one with a package of bills that he has been ready to run. Here's
the difference, and here's when, if I were grading the first couple of weeks, my grade on Sarah Sanders would probably be a little tougher than on previous governors. Usually you'll have a new governor come in and you got to give them a little break on this first session. They've been scrambling to hire staff, transition, so forth. But all of us knew, Roby, that Sarah Sanders would be the next governor for more than a year. I mean, it was almost preordained from the moment she announced. And we talked about this on election night when we were on the air together. I think she missed a very good chance to go on and start prepping all of last year, since she had an easy race, to start prepping for this first session. Instead, my sense is we've got a governor's office that is woefully unprepared right now, still 2 weeks in, talking in these broad generalities and not giving us details on anything.
Yeah, there are some things that are being drafted, I think, but,
right.
but it's not there yet.
But let me give you a difference. For instance, when I worked for her father, Governor Mike Huckabee, coming into the 2003 session, we had to answer the Lakeview ruling on public education. We tried government reorganization then, we didn't get there, but we released both of those on day one of the session and let people start shooting. I mean, the State of the State address that day in 2003 was probably 45 minutes laying out details of all of those. This is where that governor should have been on day one.
Did you write some of those cow jokes for Mike Huckabee, or were those just his own?
I didn't do the jokes, okay?
Right. So the legislature has gotten straight to work on education and criminal. No, I'm sorry. They've been working on drag bills, is what they've been working on. So
exactly.
I mean, what do you make of? I mean, this happens a lot though in a vacuum at the very beginning of sessions.
I have to tell you, the front page picture though in Friday's Democrat-Gazette of Senator Gary Stubblefield and a drag queen sitting together, that is an award-winning photo right now. That may sum up this legislative session. That one photo.
If we just maybe had a little bit more of a circus atmosphere around there, that would do it too. All right, where do you think the challenges are going to be on education reform? I'll throw out my 2 cents first. I feel like superintendents are going to push back on this voucher system and the potential loss of revenue that is going to come.
Yeah, and I mentioned Lakeview, and I'm going back 20 years, I know, but when I was working in the governor's office and we started to have to answer Lakeview, and a part of that, you remember, is we had to consolidate a lot of small school districts, and believe me, we found out quickly just how strong small school superintendents are, and they really are. You look at it, Roby, and they're the biggest employer in the area where they live. They probably make a bigger salary than anybody else in that area. They buy more food. They buy more gas. I mean, they're fiefdoms.
It's
Those
a
guys are
town
politically
identity too.
Oh,
A
yeah.
town's identity revolves around its school and its sports programs.
Yeah, those men and women are really politically strong, and you're going to see them pushing back on a lot of things in this session. And these local legislators, they have to listen to them.
But is it going to be enough, or is the honeymoon period going to be enough to get them through? I mean, I've talked to a couple of state legislators this week, and I've asked them, what's going to break you on this? If something's not in there, or if something was in there and it's something you can't deal with, and they're like, no, I'm pretty good on everything that I've heard so far.
Well, they're not getting that push from home just yet. And when those details come out and they start getting that push from the superintendent back home, from the school board members back home, from people they know and have to deal with and go to church with and go to the grocery store with back home, then we could see that change just a little bit. Again, we haven't seen the details of the education package then, and to pull the cliche out, the devil is indeed in the details.
Right. Well, we have not seen the criminal justice reform bill either, but we have heard some overarching things. Obviously, Attorney General Tim Griffin on this show earlier today laying out some things. More beds, more operations, mental health services, more workforce and education programming to try to help people here, longer sentences. I could put a pretty big price tag on all of this really quick.
Yeah, and
where do you take money from public education, add more money into criminal justice reform, and still do tax cuts? The budget doesn't balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we've again got a lot of new members in the legislature, and I'm not sure they understand the constitutional mandate in our state that we have to have a balanced budget in Arkansas. I'm not sure that they understand the Revenue Stabilization Act, where you have to put things in categories, and the top category is funded first, and if you run out of money, category 2 doesn't get funded at all. I'm not sure they really understand that yet, and when we start diving down again, then we'll have to see some reality take place. That said, though, I think some of the criminal justice things are going to pass more easily than some of the education reform things, because they aren't going to be getting that pushback from home. Just talking broadly, putting more people in prison, getting crooks off the street, making parole tougher. I mean, all of that's very popular in the abstract back home.
It's still going to have a price tag.
But it does have a price tag.
It's going to have a price tag.
Yeah, there are dollar signs.
But I think people will be willing to pay it. But they got to know what it is. So.
I agree. I think people are sick of crime. I mean, everybody watches across the state 10 o'clock television news. A large part of the state gets the Little Rock market, and those 10 o'clock newscasts tend to open with crime stories night after night after night. And so I think their perception probably is that crime's worse than it actually is in the state, but perception is reality in politics.
Yeah. All right, he's Rex Nelson. He is the senior editor at the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Always good to get your take.
Roby, thank you. Appreciate it.
We've got a lot more to talk about in the weeks to come, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back.